Hi everyone, welcome to the Open Safely How It Works session. We have unsurprisingly started this a little bit late, so I'm going to keep my opening remarks very brief. I'm Seb Bacon, I'm the Chief Technical Officer here. We've just heard a load of really interesting research, but the other interesting thing that we do that's unusual for an academic group is we also make products and services and infrastructure around making research better and science better. We're very well known for our privacy design, and as Ben said earlier, we don't just make... I'm trying to go faster and not read my notes. Skip. Okay, so this session is about how we deliver our design rather than just how we do our research. So what we've got are some talks that are about small details like ehrQL, which you'll be hearing from Dave about, which is a language we have for interrogating data very safely, but also some talks about a larger philosophical level. So, for example, how we approach security infrastructure and how we actually deliver our tools and our work. So that was my very shortened version of what I wanted to say. And we're going to get straight on to Dave talking about ehrQL. There's going to be a 10-minute Q&A session at the end, so please add questions as you think of them. All right, thanks, Dave.
Hi, I'm Dave. I'm a software developer. I led the development of ehrQL, which is, altogether now, our electronic health record query language. And this is going to be a very brief overview of why we built ehrQL and why we think it's a good thing. So let's start with the problem. Working with EHR data is hard. Preparing raw data into a research-ready format takes a lot of work, and it involves writing a lot of code. But traditionally, everyone does that same work in lots of different ways. Partly that's because code isn't always shared. Even when it is shared, it can be hard to read and understand other people's code. Even when you can understand it, often it's written to run on one machine with one particular database. If you change the database, you have to throw all the code away. If you want to run the same job in two different databases, you have to write two different sets of code. So ehrQL was designed to take all this disparate, divergent, ad hoc set of activities and help to standardize it. And it does so by providing a common language for working with EHR data, which is readable, reusable, and portable. And let me explain what I mean by showing you some ehrQL. So here we've got a little fragment of ehrQL which counts prescriptions. So for each patient in the database, it counts how many prescriptions for asthma medication they've had in the last year. And we start by choosing a table in the database, and then we filter it so it contains just prescriptions where the drug code is in a code list of asthma medications, available from opencodelists.org. We filter it again to contain just prescriptions which have been in the last year. We count the number for each patient, and finally, we give the whole thing a meaningful name so we can refer to it later. Now, that isn't like Jane Austen, but I think it is pretty readable. I think even if I hadn't walked through it, you could probably, with a bit of guesswork, have worked out what that code was doing. And critically, that means it's not just readable by other researchers, but clinicians or other professionals with a lot of domain expertise, but not necessarily a lot of programming experience, can still read and understand the code and confirm that it matches their expectations. So, next, ehrQL is reusable. So I don't just mean that you can copy and paste things other people have done. I mean that you can take existing bits of code and you can use them as building blocks to combine with new code to create the structures you need. So if you imagine that alongside that asthma prescription count, we've got another variable which finds explicitly coded asthma diagnoses. We can combine those two together and say, we'll consider you to have asthma if either you've got a recorded diagnosis or you've been repeatedly prescribed asthma meds. And then we can take that definition and wrap it up into a module, and someone else can come along and say, I'm interested in patients with asthma, and they can reuse that logic without having to replicate it. Or maybe you want to reuse the same basic logic, but you've got different needs regarding the time periods involved. Or we can make configurable variables. So there's one here which finds recent asthma, but you get to say what recent means in your particular research context. Really what I'm describing here is something stronger than just reusability. It's composability. So ehrQL doesn't just give you prefabricated units, it gives you EHR Lego, which you can either reuse wholesale or take apart and reconfigure for your own needs. Finally, ehrQL is portable. So when you run your ehrQL code against real patient data, it gets sent off to one of our secure backends, which are run by the GP system suppliers, TPP and EMIS. Now, TPP and EMIS both handle GP data, but they use completely different database technologies. They've structured their data differently. The ehrQL engine knows how to translate the researcher's code into the right form for each database and to produce identically structured output in each case. And this is the key piece that lets us process data in situ in the database it lives in, rather than having to pool it all together in one place. And it's also what allows us to do federated analytics, where the results from multiple backends can be combined in a single analysis, again, without having to pool the underlying data. It also means that the libraries of code and the expertise that researchers are building in ehrQL isn't tied to one particular database. So if we come to support another kind of backend with a new database technology, we don't have to take all that existing work and throw it away. We need a small group of people to sit down and write the necessary translator code, and then suddenly that existing library of work becomes usable in this new context. So it becomes a long-term asset rather than just another source of vendor lock-in. I'm going to stop there. There is so much more to say about ehrQL. We're running some workshops tomorrow. There's one in particular on how ehrQL lets you work with dummy data, so you can develop studies safely on your laptop without any access to the sensitive patient data. That is a whole subject I didn't cover here. Please come along. If you've got questions, please grab me or anyone on the team. We will be, if anything, slightly too keen to talk to you about it. Thank you very much.